What's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in today. So today I'm going to be talking to you about my trip to Ivory Coast. Now, Ivory Coast is also known as Cote d'Ivoire. But before I tell you about my trip there, let's go ahead and get the negativity out of the way. It's not invited here. Leave it somewhere else. Put it somewhere else. And number one, Africa is a continent. We all know that. Africa has many different countries inside of it, which is a continent. And number two, yes, I cannot base the way I see Africa solely on one country. That is true. All right. So now that we got that out the way, leave the negativity elsewhere, put it somewhere else, throw it somewhere else. I don't care where you put it, but don't bring it here. All right. Now, Ivory Coast is, as you can see here, it's between Ghana and Liberia. More specifically, I visited Abidjan, as I stated, um, and I rested my head in a small town called Benjaville, which is outside of Abidjan. All right, so let's talk about the things that you're going to need. Now, keep in mind, I visited Ivory Coast in 2016, and I'm sure some things have probably slightly changed because of COVID and everything. Um, so the things that I needed, and which I'm sure you'll probably need too, is you're gonna need the passport. All right. Everybody got your passport, you're gonna need that. The second thing that I needed was a yellow fever shot. All right. So I don't want you to see all my information, but you're gonna need a yellow fever shot. And then once you do that, they'll document, what they gave you. And you pretty much won't be getting in the country without that. All right. So, and then you're also going to need a visa, which you'll send your passport to Washington, D.C., the embassy, the U.S. embassy, and then they'll return you your visa. All right. They'll return your visa and your passport. So that's what you're going to need to visit Ivory Coast. All right. Now let's talk about my plane ride there. Um, it took me quite a bit of flight to get to uh, Ivory Coast because at that particular time I lived in Nashville, Tennessee. Now, obviously, there's not going to be a one-way or a two-way flight to Ivory Coast from Nashville, Tennessee. So I had to go from Nashville to Chicago, Chicago to New York, New York to Belgium, Brussels, Belgium to be more specific. Then I flew down all the way to Benin here, and then from Benin to Ivory Coast. So that was my trip from the United States over to Ivory Coast. Um, it was about 22 hours. 22 hours. A little bit of in between time of freedom in between the flights. Um, and I actually met a friend that I'm still in contact with sometimes now. He's actually from Benin, and the funny thing about that is when I got to Benin, I thought that I was in the Ivory Coast because the computer that showed, your duration of the flight, the map of where you actually were, uh, it didn't register where we were. It made it seem like we were in Ivory Coast. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna get out. He's like, whoa, 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 this is the wrong country. We're in Benin, so you got one more flight before you get to Ivory Coast. And the more that story is, always communicate with people. You never know who's willing to help you because I didn't know where I was at. Like I said, if the map showed we were in Ivory Coast, we weren't. So had I not spoken to him in the airport, you know, got to know him a little bit more, chop it up or whatever you call it, I would have been lost. All right. So never be afraid to speak up to people. You never know. All right. So that was a little bit about my plane ride there. I did notice the African cultures, while on the plane. I noticed people speaking many different languages, French, English, tribal languages. So, it was a beautiful thing to see people speaking more than one language. All right. So let's talk about the first impression. Now, my first impression, I would say, was the palm trees, the people, the positive energy, the togetherness, the oneness, if you will. That's one thing that I noticed. Um, I did notice that people were go getters too, so they were hustling. As soon as you came out of the airport, people were trying to sell their merchandise, things they made, goods, offer services, cell phones, memory cards, chips of cell phone service. So I just noticed that people were go getters. That was my first impression. The air was fresh. The air was clean. And that was my first impression. So I'm gonna go to another picture here. Sorry. So I'm gonna go to the next picture here. All right, now this picture is myself here. I'm the smaller guy in the bunch. My brother, his friends here on the outside. All right, so let's talk about the people of Ivory Coast. So the people were very welcoming. You know, they when they met you, they stayed in contact with you throughout your entire visit there to make sure you were good every day. They want to make sure nothing was wrong. If they needed to help you out, they were in contact with you at some point every day. Um, I would say culturally, family was a big thing there. So everywhere I went, people would ask, where's your wife? Where's your wife? You know, if you here, you can have as many wives as you want. And I'm just like, oh, okay. And that's a unusual thing to hear from somebody that is from the United States because everything is pretty much two people. When it comes to uh, relationships, if you will. Now, obviously, a lot of people have different relationships with people, but traditionally in America, man and woman would marry, become one. But in West Africa, and not even just in Ivory Coast, it's not uncommon for people to be married to more than one person. So that's one thing that I noticed too. Um, Also, culturally, I noticed that the togetherness, I can't express that more than once. The togetherness was pretty powerful. And one example of that is you notice that if one person from a family makes it big, like becomes a doctor or a professional athlete or someone that brings in a nice income, everybody made it. It's not a individualism. There's again a togetherness, and if you make it, we make it. We're all one. So culturally, that was pretty interesting to see. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the food. So this is, I want to say GABA. Forgive me if I'm not saying it right, but I believe this was GABA. So GABA is from a plant, and every morning you would see people grinding this plant up, turn it into GABA, and basically you just eat it with your hand. And I mean, it's delicious. And you can also eat GABA with this is some sort of fish. All right, so the fish was fresh. Nobody ate 2 day old fish, 3 4 day old fish. When they ate fish, it was fresh straight out of the water. All right, this was my favorite. So this was fufu. I think if this isn't correct, let me know in the comments below if you know. And I want to say it was like a banana mixed with a yellow yam, and that was my favorite dish there. So that's a fufu. Also, I think this was some sort of beef. And the sauce was delicious as well. So that was my favorite dish there. And this is some sort of rice. It looks like carrots, green beans, and the fish. When I tell you this was the best fish I ever had in my life, I'm not over exaggerating at all. Like the flavoring, the freshness of the fish was just amazing. And I had never had fish just basically uh not skinned or just left how it was, just pure like this. So that was a great experience. I don't eat much meat nowadays, but it was good then. It was a great experience. I didn't want to take away from it. This is BSAP. B-sap is the juice that I drink every day. Every day I wanted B-sap. My brother can tell you, hey, I want B-sap for every meal. I want B-sap, and B-sap, if I'm not mistaken, again, comment in the section if you know more about it. Is actually made from a flour, if I'm not mistaken, and it's blended up naturally with nothing added to it. I think it's just maybe a little bit of water in this flour. If that's not correct, let us know in the comments below. So BSAP. Got to get that when you go to Ivory Coast. Now, while I was there, I got to meet a lot of kids because my brother is an English teacher and he was teaching English in Ivory Coast. And in Ivory Coast, they speak predominantly French and then their tribal languages. All right. So these were some kids that I had the opportunity to help my brother teach English. Now, this young man here, he spoke fluent English. This guy here, he spoke a little bit and he was pretty good too from what I remember. So they all spoke pretty good English. They actually taught me some French as well, so it was a mutual thing. So there's a picture of me kind of teaching them a little bit of English. Now, what I will say about the children there were they were very respectful. They respected their elder, and culturally, I noticed that seniority meant everything there, you know. So your age means a lot. So if there is somebody older than you, you show them the highest respect because they've kind of paved the way in some sort of way for you. All right. So that's one thing that I learned too. Here's another picture of me, helping my brother teach. uh, they wanted me to do. They knew that I practiced yoga and I taught yoga, so they wanted to see me do some transitions. So I showed them like handstands and forearm stands, and that was pretty cool. Um, this picture here was the actual village that I was staying in Benjerville, and this is where we would eat in the morning. Usually in the afternoon and dinner, we would try to go somewhere else and eat, but this was a picture of the village that I was in. Another picture of the village that I was in outside of Abidjan. Now, you guys have to keep in mind, Abidjan is a city. So, just like whatever cities you guys live in, it looks similar, So, don't let the media fool you into thinking that all of the continent is, a rainforest or desert or it's not. Compacted of urban cities. So there are many huge cities on the continent of Africa. So don't be fooled by that. Another picture of the village that I was in, and I didn't take too many pictures while I was in the city because I wanted to really feel and get the experience for its entirety. All right, so again, these are just village pictures. This is what I really wanted to see. The cities. I live in the city, so this is what I wanted to make sure I got pictures of. This was actually a gym that I visited while I was there. And this guy here was kind of the person that ran the gym. I would see him every day. We spoke, and kind of got a little bit of knowledge from each other. All right, now let's talk about transportation. So anything goes in Ivory Coast. So if you got a moped, you get as many people on as you can. You take your belongings with you. You go where you need to go. You go at every speed you go. You go around all of the cars. You get you. I mean, it's anything goes. Like it was pretty incredible to see. People getting where they needed to go without injury and just moving as freely and quickly as they wanted to. Now, most of the time, while I was there, we rode in this is what is called a baka. So you'll see bakas everywhere. Now, the bakas are pretty inexpensive, and to go, from one end to the city to another, let's say you want to go 25 miles, um, it would be like $1. So a lot of times I would only pay $1 going one way, and that would get me like 25 miles, which is incredible, right? Now, there were times where there were, a lot of people on the Bacchus, but I wanted that experience, and it wasn't that bad, and it was a great experience being with people, being in the culture, and seeing people, grocery shop at the markets, bring their food onto the Baca, just kind of seeing how they live day to day. All right. So the Baca was a great experience. Um, you just never know what you were going to experience. You never know where you were going to end up. Sometimes they would go off the route, come back on. You still got where you needed to go. You still got to see so much of the city of Abidjan. So I was pretty ecstatic riding those things. Now, while I was there, I got to visit the University of Abidjan. All right, now this guy was the student president. All right, and his name was Weiss. Now Weiss spoke English, French, tribal languages, Chinese. I know he was supposed to move to China. I'm not sure if he did. I had to check in with him to see how things went there. But he's a great guy. Um, Also, here's a picture of me and my brother. So yeah, all of my brothers are tall. I don't know what happened to me. Um, yeah, it's just one of those things that happen. So I thank my brother for allowing me to spend time with him there, kind of see what his life was like while he was in Ivory Coast. All right, and so this was the apartment that I was in while I was visiting in that village of Benjerville. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about what I experienced there. So a lot of you asked me, do Africans hate Black Americans? And overall, the answer would be no. Now there are going to be people that don't like you everywhere in this world. But as far as my experience, I didn't experience that. So the answer to that question would be no. And the interesting thing about that is a lot of people know why you're there. They know you want to trace your roots. They know that you want to, experience life as if you would if you hadn't gone across the waters. So um, they don't hate Black Americans. Again, that's one of those things to where the media stirs up that, and then when you get there, it's like, man, they love me just like I'm them, and we are them, you know. Yeah, it's true that some of us may be 20% European or whatever, but the majority of our blood is in them and in us. All right. So we are one. We're Black people. You know. Um, a lot of you asked about physical physiques over there. Um, Everybody was in shape for the most part. Everybody had cuts and abs and muscles. The women were in really good shape. The guys were in good shape. But you have to think that their way of life is different. They do a lot of physical labor. They do a lot of walking. Um, they eat differently. They eat fresh food. They eat lean food. So their physiques, for the most part, are going to be different. Now, the whole time that I was there, I probably saw tens of thousands of people within that week I was there, and I only saw one person that was overweight. You know, so that was much different from a lot of places that I've been in the US where, 30, 40, 50, 60% of people are overweight. So that was pretty eye opening. And even when it comes down to the oils that they cook with, like coconut oil, um, they cook with that or other different oils to where they don't have preserves and all this extra artificial things in it because you have to remember what the body can't store or use as energy, it's gonna turn into fat, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of us in America have become so overweight and obese, is because something as simple as even vegetable oil. When you look on the back of the ingredients, is it really vegetable oil? You know, it says vegetable oil on the front, but on the back, it may say something else. So be aware and cautious of, what you're consuming in your body. Um, but that's another story in itself. The weather was fantastic. It was tropical. It was humid. You saw coconut trees everywhere. You saw avocado trees everywhere. And actually, they gave me an entire suitcase of coconuts and avocado to bring back home with me because they were everywhere, you know. And like I said before, they had the mindset that what's mine is yours. So if you're walking down the street and your neighbor has coconuts on their tree, you just take a coconut. You know, there's no, oh, stay off my land, get off my property, don't touch this. No, this is, everything is ours. You know, and that's one of the things that I took back with me back home to America. I'm also going to talk about a bucket bath experience that I had. So while I was there was one time the water went out, and so some of you have seen pictures of mothers giving their babies baths in certain parts of the motherland, and I had to do that myself because the water went out. But I was happy about that because I got the real authentic experience of of the motherland, of this country that I was in. So a lot of people would be spoiled and see that as a bad thing, but I embraced it and was excited about it, like I stated. So you got to take a bucket bath, man. It's a life changing experience. It's like you come closer to nature. You become one with nature. So that's why I really enjoyed it. The nightlife. I'm not really a nightlife person, especially at this point in my life. About 36 years old. I've done all that stuff in my life. But even while I was there, I was like 30, 31 years old. Um, we went to a spoken word. All right. Now, at this spoken word, they did, poems. They did music, singing. There were bands there. People displayed their arts and whatnot. And the beautiful thing about this spoken word was people would do a poem in, let's say, 5 different languages. That way, if you only spoke one language, you would get it. You would understand. You would have a piece of it, and you can take it back with you. Same thing with their music. Musically, they would break it down to, they may start it off in French, then they may go, do an entire portion of their music in English. Then they may do German. Then they may do Dutch. So it was amazing to me to see, like I said before, people knowing more than one language, not tied to communicating in only one language. And that can actually take away your experience. All right. So that was great. But while I was there, I met people from Nigeria. There were black people from Sweden that were there. Uh, New York City in America. Benin, Togo, Liberia. So I got to meet a lot of people from many parts of the world. There were even people from Asia that were there. So that was pretty cool. That that was an enjoyable nightlife experience for me. All right. Now the golden question is, could I live there? And the answer to that question is, drum roll, yes. I could live there because I'm a person that takes things for where they are. I'm like a chameleon. I can kind of blend in anywhere, and especially with my experience of living in Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, Tennessee. I know I'm missing a state, but I've lived in many different states. I visited many different countries: Brazil, Sao Paulo in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, Mexico, Montreal in Canada, Vancouver in Canada, Toronto in Canada, Belgium, Paris, London. I mean, the list goes on and on. So I would say my experience by being in all these many different countries has changed my mindset, and now I have a worldly view. Now I don't see things, or I don't have a vision of just an Americanized mindset, right? So I see things more on a worldly basis, and this is why it's important for you guys to get out of your countries, get out of your comfort zones. Some of you have been in your same, county in your state for 40, 50 years, never left your county because you're uncomfortable and you're living based on what other people told you and not based on you living your life. All right. So again, yes, I could live there. So let's talk about the cost of living. Then you could get a nice apartment for like 150 US dollars. Utilities, 8, 9, $10 a month. You know, so if you've got, $1,500, you can pay that all up front for what a lot of you are paying for 1 month. You can pay that for a whole year and live good for an entire live year. So even the way I see retirement is different. Maybe you're 30 years old, you got $50,000, you can have 50 US American dollars come to, Ivory Coast, and you can retire for the rest of your life. I would still have maybe some sort of online business, some sort of income, but you can do it. Also, I would say if you're going to live in Ivory Coast or some of the other countries in Africa, you have to become an entrepreneur. You have to have an entrepreneur mindset. You know, coming over to Ivory Coast, looking for a job may not work out. But maybe it will. All right. So just think about that. So there was something that I didn't want to forget here. So these are the things that I brought back with me. All right. So this is the wisdom that I brought back. So number one, no family member gets left behind based on the success of a particular family member. And I talked about that before. So if I'm from Ivory Coast and I make it big, no matter even if it's not in Ivory Coast, what if I come to America? If I make it big, I keep looking out for my family. All right. So my success is our success. My success is not just my success. It's our success. It's my family's success. It's my community success, my village. So I can't forget where I come from, and I have to continue to contribute to uplift my community, uplift where I came from, uplift, where my ancestors are from. All right. Number two, the wisdom that I took. If someone does not give you a job, don't sit around expecting someone, to give you a job, and don't sit around whining. You have to be creative and you have to make a way to earn your living. That was one thing that I I'm taking back with me too, or took back with me. And I noticed that even my businesses have gone up, because of what I saw, the way I saw people grind when they were there. All right. Number three, the wisdom that I took back with me is give with your heart and never expect anything in return. So again, while I was there, people gave me a lot. They gave me what they had, and like I said before, the way they viewed it is they're giving um, because it's mine too. You know, a lot of times in America, like I said, get off my land, get off from in front of my house. You know, don't take anything out of my garden, and no one there really had that mindset. I didn't meet anybody there that had that type of mindset. And it's interesting to me that how you know my ancestors went from that to a more uh individual way of thinking. It's just amazing, uh the culture and the things you'll learn there. And number four, the wisdom that I brought is when you have a visitor from another country, check on them periodically, and make sure they are okay. All right. Now, this is something that we all can learn, right? We take that for granted and we just automatically assume that everybody's okay, when they come and visit or don't even care. Like, oh, they're from another country. We don't care. Welcome to America. And we can't be like that. So that was an important thing that I, brought back with me. And I explained to the people of Ivory Coast that, if you come to America, don't take it personally if we don't do that to you because uh, that's not the culture in America. But just be patient with us, teach us, if we're willing to learn, and we'll take on that knowledge and pass it on to our youth as we go along our life journey. All right. Number five bit of wisdom that I brought back with me is be grateful, happy, and content with what you have. Right. So, and the interesting thing about that is the happiest people that I've seen in my life were actually in Ivory Coast. They didn't have iPads, iPhones, Bugattis, a car, or any of that. Living the simple village life that I lived while I was there for that 1 week I was there. That was probably one of the most happiest moments of my life. Besides like marrying my wife, but that was happiness. The simplicity was the happiness. I wasn't worried about keeping up with the Joneses or the white picket fence or this American dream that's been forced on many of us. Um, that simplicity was the happiness. You see that you didn't have to have all of these things to be happy. You didn't have to have any of them. All you needed was food, a place to lay your head, your family, your friends, your community. That's all that you needed. You know. So if you guys have anything else that you want to ask me about my experience in Ivory Coast, feel free to ask any questions. I'm an open book. I'm sure I didn't go over everything, but I tried to take notes and express, the way I felt in my experience. All right, so thank you guys again for tuning in. Until next time, I'm out.